The Awakening. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Concord fell silent as High Archon Vexilla entered. Her crystalline form shimmered under the light of 3 artificial suns suspended in the chamber's vaulted ceiling. Representatives from 2,000 species rose in respect, some on appendages that resembled legs, others hovering on anti-gravity fields, a few simply extending their consciousness higher in the shared telepathic field. Esteemed representatives, Vexilla's voice resonated through the chamber without the need for sound. We face a crisis not seen in 12 millennia of peaceful cooperation. First speaker Jorax, a gaseous entity contained within an ornate mechanical shell, pulsed with concern. High Archon, the rumors, are they true? Has the quarantine zone been breached? Vexilla's crystalline form dimmed slightly, the equivalent of a grave nod. The unmanned monitoring station at the edge of the Sol system has gone silent. A research vessel was dispatched 3 cycles ago to investigate. We lost contact yesterday. The chamber erupted in panic. Some representatives physically recoiled. Others emitted distress pheromones or electromagnetic pulses of fear. The legends were known to all spacefaring races. The quarantine system contained the most dangerous species ever encountered in the galaxy's long history. Humans. Order, demanded Vexilla, her form pulsing bright enough to momentarily blind organic eyes. When silence returned, she continued, "We must remember that the quarantine protocol was established on limited evidence. The humans have been dormant for over 10,000 years. The ancient texts describe them as war gods, but much of our understanding comes from fragmentary records and third-hand accounts. Third-hand because no one who faced them directly survived to give first-hand accounts," called out Representative Core of the Tzalic Hive, his chidnous exoskeleton clacking nervously. "The Council has authorized a military response," Vexilla continued, ignoring the outburst. "Fleet Commander Jetlac will lead our most advanced battle group to assess the situation." At the mention of his name, Jetlac stepped forward. Unlike most Norvarians, whose blue-scaled bodies typically reached 2 meters in height, Jetlac stood nearly 3 meters tall. His species' natural armor had been enhanced with cybernetic implants, the result of a lifetime dedicated to military service. The battle group consists of 17 vessels, including the dreadnought Unwavering Doctrine. Jetlac's voice was deep and measured. "We depart immediately and will establish a perimeter at the edge of the Sol system. Our orders are to observe and contain, not to engage unless absolutely necessary." First speaker Jorax pulsed with skepticism. "And if the humans have truly awakened, the ancient texts speak of beings who not only survived impossibly hostile conditions, but seemed to thrive in them. Beings who continued fighting with limbs severed and organs failing. Beings who turned everything, even their own tools of creation, into weapons." Jetlac's 4 eyes narrowed. "Then we will do what must be done to protect the Concord. The humans have been asleep for millennia. Their technology will be outdated. Their numbers will be few. If they have indeed awakened, they will find themselves facing the combined might of 2,000 peaceful species who have no intention of being subjugated by the legendary war gods." Dr. Ileana Reeves squinted against the harsh emergency lights as the cryopod's seal hissed open. Her lungs burned with the first breath of cold, stale air. Her mind struggled to process sensory input after centuries of dreamless sleep. "Status report," she croaked, her voice barely audible. The facility's AI responded immediately. "Critical alert. Emergency awakening protocol initiated. Date is April 15, 3152. You have been in cryostasis for 1,079 years, 3 months, 17 days. Ileana's scientific mind, genetically enhanced to recover quickly from cryosleep, rapidly processed the implications. She had entered stasis as Earth's ecosystem collapsed after the resource wars, part of the continuity protocol that preserved humanity's best minds until the planet could recover. "Why was I awakened?" she demanded, already knowing it wasn't good news. The protocol had strict guidelines for reawakening the sleepers. Unknown vessels have entered the Sol system. Defense satellites have been destroyed. Communication with Luna Base has been lost. Threat assessment. Immediate. How many others are awake? Military contingent Alpha through Delta have been revived. You are the first civilian specialist. Ileana nodded. The protocol prioritized military personnel for external threats. As lead geneticist of the Human Genome Preservation Project, she would only be awakened if the situation was dire enough to potentially threaten humanity's survival. Take me to command. The corridors of Bunker Epsilon, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains, were a flurry of activity. Men and women in military uniforms moved with purpose, their bodies showing none of the weakness typically associated with extended cryosleep. Like Ileana, they had been enhanced, not just to awaken quickly, but to fight immediately if necessary. The command center was a cavernous room dominated by a holographic projection of the Sol system. Admiral Helena Chen stood at its center, her weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of tactical displays. Dr. Reeves, Chen acknowledged without looking away from the displays. Glad you're with us. We're going to need your expertise. What are we facing, Admiral? Chen gestured at the hologram. 17 vessels of unknown design and origin entered the system 6 hours ago. They destroy our outer defense grid without warning or attempting communication. Based on their approach vector and formation, we're dealing with a coordinated military force. First contact is a military confrontation. Ileana's heart sank. This was humanity's greatest fear, that their first encounter with extraterrestrial life would be hostile. Looks that way, Chen replied grimly. We've activated all remaining defense systems and launched what's left of the automated fleet, but we're severely outgunned. Most of our military assets were decommissioned or repurposed before the continuity protocol began. A young officer approached. Admiral, we've intercepted communications between the alien vessels. The AI is struggling with translation, but we've identified repeated references to war gods and containment protocols. Chen and Ileana exchanged puzzled glances. They're afraid of us, Ileana realized. But why? We've been asleep for a millennium. We never ventured beyond our solar system. Admiral Chen's eyes narrowed. Someone's been telling stories about humanity, and they don't paint us in a flattering light. The hologram flickered as new information appeared. Admiral, called the tactical officer, we've detected a smaller vessel breaking formation with the main fleet. It's heading directly for Earth. Intentions? Unknown, but its profile suggests a scout or research vessel, not a capital ship. Chen considered this. Prepare a welcome party. Major Kovacs, take your team to intercept if they land. Non-lethal approach unless they fire first. The Admiral turned to Ileana. Doctor, I want you with them. If these aliens are afraid of us, I want to know why. And I want someone with a scientific perspective present for humanity's first face-to-face contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Fleet Commander Zetlak paced the bridge of the unwavering doctrine, his tail swishing in agitation. The initial scans of the Sol system had revealed disturbing information. Report, he demanded of his science officer. Ixel, a Quarian with 6 limbs and compound eyes that processed visual data across 12 dimensions, manipulated the holographic display. The human homeworld shows signs of advanced recovery from massive ecological damage. Atmosphere and biosphere have been artificially restored to optimal conditions. We detect artificial structures across the planet and its satellite, but most appear dormant. And the energy signatures. Deeply concerning, Commander. We're detecting power sources activating across the system, primarily defensive installations. The technology is unusual. It doesn't follow standard development paths we're familiar with. Some installations appear to be powering up from complete dormancy. Zetlak hissed softly. They're waking up. Commander, interrupted his communications officer. Scout vessel Empirical Inquiry reports they've detected a concentration of active technology in a mountainous region of the main continent. Captain Vorith requests permission to investigate directly. Zetlak considered the request. The mission parameters allowed for close reconnaissance, but the legends of human ferocity gave him pause. Still, they needed information. Granted, but they are to maintain defensive posture and withdraw at the first sign of hostility. The scout ship Empirical Inquiry descended through Earth's atmosphere, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it nearly invisible to conventional detection methods. Captain Vorith, a slender Havarian with iridescent scales and 4 eyes, watched the landscape below with fascination. "This doesn't match the historical records," she murmured. "The war god's world was described as barren and scorched, yet I see forests, oceans, life." "Perhaps the records were wrong," suggested her second-in-command. "Or perhaps," Vorith replied, "the humans have been busy during their long sleep." Their sensors picked up a concentration of technology embedded within a mountain range. As they approached, a flat area of rock suddenly slid open, revealing an artificial cavern large enough to accommodate their vessel. "They're inviting us in," Vorith realized. "Or luring us into a trap," countered her security chief. After a moment's hesitation, Vorith made her decision. "Take us in. Shields at maximum. We came for answers." The scout ship descended into the mountain, the rock closing above them like the jaws of some primitive predator. Major Victor Kovacs and his team waited in the landing bay as the alien vessel settled onto the reinforced platform. His squad consisted of 12 soldiers, all genetically enhanced, neurologically optimized, and equipped with the most advanced combat systems available when the continuity protocol began. Behind them stood Dr. Ileana Reeves, unarmed but protected by a personal shield generator. "Remember," Kovacs reminded his team, "non-lethal approach. We're making history here." The alien ship, approximately 30 meters long with an organic flowing design unlike any human vessel, sat motionless for several minutes. Finally, a section of its hull rippled and dissolved, forming an opening. 3 beings emerged. The first was tall and slender with iridescent scales and 4 eyes. The second was stockier with blue skin and what appeared to be cybernetic implants. The third was unlike anything Eliana had ever seen, a hovering mass of tentacles surrounding a central transparent core in which complex organs pulsed and shifted. Major Kovacs stepped forward, hands empty and visible. "On behalf of humanity and Earth, I welcome you to our world." The 4-eyed being made a gesture, and a small device on its chest glowed. "I am Captain Vorith of the Galactic Concord vessel, Empirical Inquiry. We come under protest, violating the quarantine protocol established 12,000 cycles ago." Kovacs and Ileana exchanged confused glances. "Quarantine." Ileana stepped forward. "We've been in cryostasis for just over 1,000 years. Our civilization never made contact with extraterrestrial intelligence before the continuity protocol began." The aliens' reactions were visible even across species barriers: surprise, confusion, and what appeared to be fear. "You do not know?" Vorith asked. "You have no knowledge of the war god protocols, of the great devastation, of why your system was sealed off from the rest of the galaxy." "We know nothing of these things," Kovacs replied. "Our history records no contact with alien life before today." The tentacled being emitted a series of clicks and whistles. Vorith's translation device processed the sounds. "Science Officer 6 suggests your civilization's records may have been lost or deliberately erased. The Great Devastation occurred over 12,000 years ago by your counting. The conflict was so catastrophic that many participating species lost their historical archives." Ileana's scientific mind raced. 12,000 years ago would place this great devastation during Earth's Neolithic period, when humans were just beginning to develop agriculture. We had no spacefaring capability then. The blue-skinned alien spoke, its voice rumbling through the translation device. "The legends speak of the war gods coming from nowhere, fighting with impossible ferocity, and then vanishing just as mysteriously. Some believe they retreated to their homeworld to hibernate. Others thought they transcended physical form. The quarantine was established as a precaution. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Admiral Chen's voice echoed through the communication system. Major Kovacs, get your team back to command immediately. The alien fleet is moving into attack formation. Voreth's 4 eyes widened. No. Commander Jetlak wouldn't. She activated a communication device, speaking rapidly in an alien language. The facility shook as the first impact struck the mountain above. They're bombing us, Kovacs shouted, his team immediately moving into defensive positions. Voreth continued speaking into her communication device, her gestures becoming increasingly agitated. Finally, she turned to the humans. Commander Jetlak believes your awakening and the activation of your defense systems represent an imminent threat to the Concord. He has ordered a preemptive strike. The facility shook again, more violently this time. Ileana stepped forward. Captain Voreth, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. We pose no threat to your Concord. We've been asleep, rebuilding our world after our own wars nearly destroyed it. I believe you, Voreth replied, but Commander Jetlak is acting on 12,000 years of fear. The legends of the war gods run deep in our collective memory. Major Kovacs made a decision. Then we need to show your commander that the legends are just that. Legends. Dr. Reeves, take our guests to command. I'll coordinate defense. As Ileana led the aliens toward the command center, another impact rocked the facility, causing dust and small fragments of rock to rain down from the ceiling. Captain Voreth looked at Ileana with all 4 eyes. Dr. Reeves, I fear you may have to demonstrate why your kind earned the name War Gods if we are to survive this day. Ileana felt a chill run down her spine. What exactly do these legends say about us? That when threatened, humans don't simply fight. They transform. That your bodies and minds evolved in the crucible of a death world, making you capable of feats no civilized species would imagine. That you view impossible situations not as defeat, but as challenges. Another explosion, closer this time. Well, Ileana said grimly, your commander is about to learn whether those legends are true. The Reckoning. Admiral Helena Chen stood unmoving as the command center erupted in controlled chaos around her. Tactical officers called out damage reports, while weapons specialists worked to bring ancient defense systems online. Through it all, Chen's focus remained on the holographic display, showing the alien fleet moving into attack formation. When Dr. Reeves entered with 3 aliens in tow, Chen raised an eyebrow, but otherwise showed no reaction. Admiral, Ileana said, slightly out of breath, this is Captain Voreth of the Galactic Concord. There's been a misunderstanding. They believed we were under quarantine because of something that happened 12,000 years ago. Chen's gaze shifted to the aliens. That's a fascinating historical footnote, Doctor, but at the moment, their fleet is trying to blow us to atoms. The tentacled alien, Science Officer 6, floated forward, its translation device emitting a mechanized voice. Admiral, we did not come with hostile intent. The attack was ordered based on millennia of fear. The Concord believes your species once brought devastation to the galaxy before mysteriously disappearing. 12,000 years ago. Chen shook her head. Humanity hadn't even invented the wheel globally at that point. A direct hit rocked the facility, causing the lights to flicker. A tactical officer called out, Admiral, our outer defenses are at 30% capacity. The mountain shielding is beginning to fail. Chen made a decision. Captain Voreth, I'm giving you one chance to contact your commander and end this attack. Explain the situation. Tell him we have no quarrel with the Concord. Voreth attempted communication again, but shook her head after a moment. Commander Jetlak believes this is a deception. The legends claim humans are masterful deceivers. Chen's expression hardened. Then we do this the hard way. She turned to her tactical officer. Activate Naim Orud. An alarm sounded, different from the others. Deeper, more resonant. The holographic display shifted, showing a massive structure buried beneath the lunar surface. Mode activation sequence initiated. Announced the facility AI. Firing solution calculated. Target locked. The blue-skinned alien with cybernetic implants spoke urgently. What is this weapon? Not a weapon, Chen replied. A message. On the holographic display, a beam of coherent energy erupted from the lunar surface, striking one of the smaller alien vessels. Instead of destroying it, the beam seemed to pass through it, leaving the ship intact but completely powerless. A targeted EMP, Chen explained, designed to disable rather than destroy. Your vessel's crew is unharmed, but they're now floating dead in space. Captain Vorith stared at the display, mandibles clicking in what might have been astonishment. You could have destroyed it. That wouldn't serve our purposes, Chen replied. We want to talk, not fight. Now, will your commander listen, or do I need to send more messages? Before Vorith could respond, a new alarm sounded. A tactical officer called out, Admiral, we're detecting a massive energy signature entering the system. It's not Concord. All eyes turned to the holographic display as a new vessel appeared, a behemoth that dwarfed even the Concord dreadnought. Its design was angular, aggressive, with no apparent concession to aesthetics. Science Officer 6's tentacles writhed in agitation. Harvester vessel. The Devourers have returned. Commander Jetlack felt his scales bristle as the massive ship appeared on his sensors. He knew that configuration. Every military officer in the Concord did. The archives held detailed records of the Devourers, a synthetic race that had nearly destroyed galactic civilization 15,000 years ago, before mysteriously withdrawing to the uncharted regions. All vessels, cease attack on human installations, he ordered immediately. Defensive formation, Sigma 3 around the unwavering doctrine. His tactical officer looked up in confusion. Sir, the humans are no longer our primary concern. Jetlack cut him off. If that is truly a Devourer harvester, we have more pressing matters. Open a channel to Captain Vorith. In the human command center, Admiral Chen watched as the alien fleet reorganized its formation, weapons now oriented toward the newcomer rather than Earth. Captain Vorith's communication device activated. Commander Jetlack's voice emerged, translated into English by the device. Captain, confirm what our sensors are showing. Is that a Devourer vessel? Confirmed, Commander, Vorith replied. Science Officer 6 has identified it as a Harvester-class ship. There was a pause before Jetlack's voice returned. I am declaring an emergency under Concord Protocol 9. Captain, you will inform the humans of the threat we face and request their cooperation. Vorith turned to Admiral Chen. The vessel that has entered your system belongs to a race we call the Devourers. They are a synthetic species that nearly destroyed our civilization 15,000 years ago. They harvest organic life and technology, incorporating both into their collective. And they just happen to show up now. Chen asked skeptically. Science Officer 6 floated closer to the holographic display. Not coincidence. The Devourers were the reason for the quarantine protocol. After the Great Devastation, they pursued something to this system. When they could not retrieve it, they withdrew. The Concord established the quarantine to prevent anyone from awakening whatever drove the Devourers away. A chill ran down Ileana's spine. What drove them away? The war gods, Vorith said simply. You. As the Devourer ship approached Mars orbit, smaller vessels began to deploy from its massive hull. Hundreds of them, each the size of a terrestrial fighter jet, swarming toward both the Concord fleet and Earth. In the command center, humans and aliens worked side by side, centuries of mistrust set aside in the face of a common enemy. Ileana stood with Science Officer 6, reviewing ancient data that the Concord had shared. This doesn't make sense, Ileana said, frustrated. 12,000 years ago, humans were living in small agricultural settlements. We hadn't even developed writing in most places. How could we have driven off an advanced synthetic species? 6's tentacles moved in complex patterns as it manipulated the data displays. The records from that era are fragmentary at best. The Great Devastation destroyed much of the Concorde's historical archives. What remains suggests the war gods possess technology far beyond anything the Concorde had seen before or since. Admiral Chen joined them, her face grim. "Well, whatever our ancestors did, we need to figure it out quickly. Those smaller ships will reach Earth within the hour, and the Concorde fleet is already engaged." The holographic display showed the alien fleet fighting desperately against the swarming Devourer vessels. The Concorde ship's energy weapons seemed effective, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. "Commanders at LAC reports they cannot hold the line for long," Vorith said, her 4 eyes fixed on the display. "The Harvester is launching more vessels." Chen nodded. "We're bringing more of our own defense systems online, but most were designed for planetary defense, not space combat." Ileana continued studying the ancient data, her enhanced mind processing information at an accelerated rate. Something caught her attention, a reference in the Concorde records to living metal. "6," she said suddenly. "These records mention living metal used by the war gods. What does that mean?" The alien's tentacles paused. Ancient observers reported that the war gods' weapons and armor seemed to move and adapt during battle, as if alive. Some theories suggest a form of nanotechnology, but it was unlike anything the Concorde had developed. Ileana's eyes widened. Nanotechnology. She turned to Admiral Chen. "Admiral, did the continuity protocol preserve any of Dr. Zhang's work on programmable matter?" Chen frowned. "The vault contains all research deemed critical to humanity's survival and rebuilding." "Why?" "Because I think I know what drove the Devourers away, and why they've returned now that we're awakening." 2 levels below the command center, a sealed vault contained humanity's most advanced technological achievements, preserved for the day when humanity would emerge from its long sleep. Ileana stood before a cylindrical container, its surface covered in warning symbols. Dr. Zhang called it the Prometheus seed. She explained to Admiral Chen and Captain Vorith. "It's a self-replicating nanotechnology platform designed to terraform hostile environments. The resource wars ended before it could be deployed." "How does this help us against the Devourers?" Chen asked. "The seed was designed to adapt to any environment and transform it according to programmed parameters. But its most remarkable feature was its defense mechanism. It could identify threats and reconfigure itself to neutralize them." Ileana carefully removed the cylinder from its housing. "I think our ancestors used something like this against the Devourers. The synthetic beings wouldn't have had any defense against a technology that could rewrite itself faster than they could adapt. And if the Devourers are based on similar principles," Vorith began, "then the seed would recognize them as competing technology and target them specifically." Ileana finished. "It's a long shot, but it's the only connection I can find between our technological capabilities 12,000 years ago and the legends of the war gods." Chen nodded. "Do it." The first wave of Devourer vessels breached Earth's atmosphere 30 minutes later. They were met by a combination of ancient human defense systems and Concorde ships that had withdrawn to make a last stand around the planet. In the command center, Ileana worked feverishly to reprogram the Prometheus seed. Assisted by Science Officer 6, the alien's knowledge of Devourer technology proved invaluable, allowing Ileana to create targeted parameters for the nanites. "The seed needs a delivery system," Ileana said, looking up from her work. "It has to make direct contact with the Harvester ship." "None of our vessels could get close enough," Vorith said. "The Harvester's defenses are too strong." Major Kovacs, who had returned to the command center after coordinating ground defenses, stepped forward. "What about the cryosleep volunteers?" All eyes turned to him. "Continuity Protocol. Section 9. Kovacs continued. 12 volunteers underwent experimental augmentation before entering cryosleep, enhanced strength, reflexes, and durability beyond normal human limits. They were meant to be awakened only in the most extreme circumstances." Admiral Chen's expression darkened. Those men and women sacrificed their humanity on the chance they might be needed someday. Awakening them is not a decision I take lightly. If we don't, Kovacs replied, there may be no humanity left to save. After a moment of heavy silence, Chen nodded. Wake them. The 12 who emerged from their specialized cryopods bore little resemblance to normal humans. Their bodies had been extensively modified. Muscles denser, bones reinforced with carbon nanotube lattices, nervous systems enhanced with synthetic components. They had volunteered for this transformation, knowing they might never be needed, might sleep forever as living weapons of last resort. Commander Jessica Ramirez, leader of the Prometheus Division, stood nearly 7 feet tall with skin that shimmered with embedded nanites. Her eyes, entirely synthetic, glowed with an inner light as she surveyed the command center. Admiral Chen, her voice was unnaturally deep resonant. The Prometheus Division awaits your orders. Chen gestured to the holographic display showing the battle above. We need to deliver a payload to that vessel. None of our conventional delivery systems can penetrate their defenses. Ramirez studied the display, her enhanced mind processing the tactical situation in seconds. We'll need a ship. The alien scout vessel in our landing bay is the fastest available option, Chen replied. But it would be a one-way trip. Ramirez nodded, unsurprised. We understood the terms when we volunteered. Show us what needs to be delivered. Captain Vorith watched in fascination and horror as the 12 augmented humans prepared for their mission. Their movements were too fluid, too precise to be natural. Their faces showed no fear, only focused determination. Your kind truly are war gods, she said quietly to Ileana, who stood nearby monitoring the final preparations for the Prometheus seed. They're still human, Ileana replied firmly. They made a choice to become what they are now. A choice to become weapons, Vorith observed. Protectors, Ileana corrected. There's a difference. Commander Ramirez approached, her towering form casting a shadow over both women. The seed is secure aboard the scout ship. We depart in 5 minutes. Vorith's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession. My vessel has certain peculiarities in its control systems. Allow me to accompany you to ensure. No, Ramirez cut her off. This is our fight now. With respect, Commander, Ileana interjected. Captain Vorith's knowledge could be crucial if anything goes wrong with the ship, and her presence might prevent the Concord fleet from firing on you as you pass through the battle zone. Ramirez considered this, her synthetic eyes focusing on Vorith with unnerving intensity. Finally, she nodded. Very well. But understand, Captain, that once we commit to this course, there is no turning back. I understand, Vorith replied solemnly. My people have a saying. In the face of the void, all species stand as one. For the first time, Ramirez's expression softened slightly. We have a similar saying. The stars don't care who you are, only what you do. The scout ship Empirical Inquiry shot out of the mountain facility like a bullet from a gun, its engines pushed beyond their designed limits by Ramirez's team. Captain Vorith sat in the pilot's seat, her 4 hands dancing across the controls while Commander Ramirez stood behind her, monitoring the tactical display. Concord vessels are creating a corridor for us, Vorith reported as they ascended through the atmosphere. Commander Jetlak has ordered all ships to provide covering fire. The void of space opened before them, a battlefield unlike anything seen in the galaxy for millennia. The Concord fleet, once 17 proud vessels, had been reduced to 11, fighting desperately against the swarming Devourer ships. The massive harvester loomed in the background, its angular form seeming to absorb the very light of the sun. Incoming, called one of Ramirez's team. 3 Devourer vessels had broken off from the main battle, moving to intercept the scout ship. Evasive maneuvers, Ramirez ordered calmly. Vorith complied, sending the ship into a series of turns that would have incapacitated an unaugmented human crew. The Devourer vessels followed, their movements mechanical and predictable. They operate on algorithms, Vorith explained as she piloted. Complex, but ultimately predictable. The smaller vessels have limited autonomy. Ramirez nodded. Lieutenant Foster, Weapon Systems, one of her team, A woman whose right arm had been entirely replaced with a weapons platform stepped forward. "Ready, Commander. Target the lead pursuer. Let's see how they adapt." Foster interfaced directly with the scout ship's weapons, her augmented mind processing targeting data faster than any computer. A burst of energy erupted from the ship's rear batteries, catching the lead devourer vessel directly in what might have been its sensory array. The vessel didn't explode. Instead, it seemed to freeze in space, its systems attempting to reconfigure after the unexpected damage. "Interesting," Ramirez observed. "They prioritize self-repair over pursuit. That's useful." The remaining two pursuers adjusted their approach, spreading out to attack from different angles. Foster targeted them in quick succession, her shots precisely aimed to damage rather than destroy. Both vessels paused their pursuit to repair. "We can't keep this up," Vorith warned. "We're approaching the Harvester's defensive perimeter. Their main weapons will be in range soon." As if on cue, a massive energy beam lanced out from the Harvester, narrowly missing the scout ship. The heat from its passage was enough to overload several secondary systems. Direct approach won't work, Ramirez decided. "We need a diversion." She turned to her team. "Alvarez, Petrova, Najeeb, deployment pods." 3 of the augmented humans moved without hesitation to a section of the ship where small one-person craft waited. These had been hastily installed before departure, essentially guided missiles with a human pilot. "What are they doing?" Vorith asked, alarmed. "Creating chaos," Ramirez replied. "The Harvester will target the largest threat first. We're giving it 3 to choose from." The 3 pods ejected from the scout ship, each accelerating in a different direction. Vorith watched in horror and fascination as the humans inside the pods manually adjusted their trajectories, performing maneuvers that would kill most species from G-force alone. "Their bodies," she whispered. "How are they surviving those forces?" "Reinforced skeletal structures," Ramirez explained. "Synthetic muscle fibers. Cerebrospinal fluid replaced with shock-absorbing nanogel. They can withstand forces that would turn an unmodified human to paste." The Harvester responded as predicted, its main weapons targeting the 3 pods while smaller defensive systems tracked the scout ship. Energy beams lashed out, narrowly missing Alvarez's pod. "They're drawing most of the fire," Ramirez noted. "Now we find our opening." Voreth's hands moved across the controls, sending the scout ship diving beneath the Harvester's main firing arc. "There's a maintenance access port on the underside, standard design across most large vessels. The Devourers may have adapted it, but the basic structure should remain." The massive bulk of the Harvester filled their view screen now, its surface a maze of weapons, sensors, and processing nodes. The sheer scale of it was intimidating. A city in space, built for the sole purpose of consuming other civilizations. "There," Vorith pointed, "that recessed area. It matches where a maintenance port would be on a Concorde vessel." Ramirez nodded. "Take us in." As they approached, a section of the Harvester's hull began to shift, plates sliding apart to reveal a weapon port. "They've spotted us," Foster called out, her weapons already targeting the opening port. "Too late," Ramirez replied calmly. She turned to the team member carrying the Prometheus seed. "Preparation sequence." Sergeant Wei Chen activated the cylinder, which began to glow with an inner blue light. The nanotechnology inside was awakening, preparing to execute its program directives. The Harvester fired, the energy beam striking the scout ship shields directly. Alarms blared as systems overloaded. "Shields at 12%, reported another team member. "One more hit and we're exposed." Vorith pushed the engines beyond their safety limits, sending the ship into a spiraling approach toward the maintenance port. "We need to get closer." "Incoming," Foster shouted as another weapon port opened. Before the Harvester could fire again, one of the human pods, Alvarez's, slammed directly into the weapon port, the impact and resulting explosion temporarily disabling that section of the ship. "He knew what he was doing," Ramirez said quietly, a moment of respect for her fallen comrade before returning to the mission. Captain, status. We're within deployment range, Vorith confirmed, her 4 eyes focused intently on her instruments. But the maintenance board is sealed. Ramirez turned to Foster. Create an opening. Foster interfaced with the ship's main weapon, channeling additional power from non-essential systems. The resulting beam carved into the harvester's hull, burning through layer after layer of advanced materials until a glowing hole appeared. Port created, Foster reported, her augmented arms smoking from the power overload. Wei Chen moved to the airlock, the Prometheus seed clutched carefully in his reinforced hands, ready for deployment. Ramirez nodded. The rest of us will cover your approach. Get as deep into the ship as you can before activation. It has been an honor, Commander, Wei Chen said simply before cycling the airlock. The vacuum of space claimed him immediately, but his augmented body was designed to withstand even this, propelled by small thrusters built into his modified armor. Wei Chen flew directly toward the opening they had created in the harvester's hull. The other pods are drawing fire away, Vorith reported, watching as Petrova and JV executed increasingly desperate evasive maneuvers. But they won't last much longer. Neither will we, Ramirez acknowledged. Once Wei Chen is inside, we withdraw. Through the view screen, they watched as Wei Chen disappeared into the breach in the harvester's hull. Moments later, a signal appeared on Ramirez's neural interface. Mission accomplished. He's in. Seed deployment in progress. All personnel, prepare for maximum acceleration. Vorith didn't need to be told twice. She swung the scout ship around, pushing the engines to their absolute limits as they fled from the harvester. Behind them, the massive ship showed no immediate signs of distress. Did it work? Vorith asked, her voice tense. Ramirez watched the sensor readings. The seed operates at a molecular level. It will take time to. She was interrupted as the sensors detected a new energy signature from the harvester. Not a weapon discharge, but something emanating from within the ship itself. A rapidly growing energy disturbance. It's working, Ramirez confirmed. The seed is targeting the harvester's systems. On the tactical display, they could see the remaining devourer vessels suddenly breaking off their attacks, turning to return to the harvester as if called home. They're being recalled, Vorith realized. The harvester is trying to adapt to the attack. Too late, Ramirez said with grim satisfaction. The seed was designed to counter any adaptation. The more complex the system, the more vulnerabilities it can exploit. As they watched from a safe distance, patches of the harvester's hull began to change color, from dark metallic gray to a luminescent blue that spread like a blight across its surface. The massive ship's movements became erratic, its weapons firing randomly into space. The seed is reprogramming the devourer's systems, Ramirez explained, converting their technology to serve its directives. Which are? Vorith asked. To preserve and protect human life, Ramirez replied. Dr. Zhang designed it with a single core directive, human survival above all else. The transformation accelerated, the blue glow encompassing more and more of the harvester. The smaller devourer vessels that had docked with it began to show the same changes. We should return to Earth, Ramirez decided. The process is irreversible now. 3 days later, Admiral Chen, Dr. Ileana Reeves, Commander Ramirez, and representatives from the Galactic Concord stood in the command center, watching the holographic display of what had once been the devourer harvester. The massive ship now pulsed with blue energy, completely transformed by the Prometheus seed. The smaller vessels that had once attacked Earth now orbited it peacefully, similarly transformed. The seed has fully integrated with the devourer technology, Ileana explained. It's repurposed their systems to serve its primary function. Commander Jetlak, who had arrived on Earth after the battle, studied the display with a mixture of awe and concern. And what exactly is that function now? To protect humanity, Ramirez stated, as it was programmed to do. So you've replaced one threat with another, Jetlak observed. A fleet of ships that will attack anyone who threatens humans. Admiral Chen shook her head. Not exactly. Dr. Reeves has modified the seed's programming. It now recognizes the Concord as allies, not threats. Ileana stepped forward. The seed is adaptive. It learns. And what it's learned is that humanity's best chance for survival is cooperation, not isolation or aggression. The war gods choosing peace, Captain Vorith mused. Our ancestors would not have believed it possible. About that, Ileana said, I have a theory about what really happened 12,000 years ago. All eyes turned to her. The timeline matches the sudden disappearance of several advanced human civilizations on Earth, civilizations that archaeological evidence suggests were far more technologically advanced than we previously believed. I think those civilizations may have encountered the Devourers first. But how? Jetlak asked. Your kind had not achieved spaceflight then. Perhaps we didn't need to, Ileana suggested. What if the Devourers came to Earth first? What if those ancient civilizations developed nanotechnology similar to the Prometheus seed as a defense? It would explain both the legends of the war gods and why the Devourers retreated from this region of space. And when the resource wars threatened to destroy Earth entirely, Admiral Chen continued, following Ileana's logic, our ancestors created the continuity protocol, putting their best minds to sleep until the planet could heal, while simultaneously hiding from any return of the Devourers. Science Officer Six's tentacles moved in what might have been excitement. This would explain the fragmented records. If the Devourers attacked multiple civilizations simultaneously, the survivors might have attributed all resistance to a single species, humans, without understanding the true diversity of your world. Commander Jetlak seemed less convinced. An interesting theory, but difficult to prove after so much time has passed. Perhaps, Admiral Chen acknowledged. But what matters now is where we go from here. She turned to the Concord representatives. Humanity is awakening after 1,000 years of sleep. We find ourselves in a galaxy we didn't know existed, faced with threats we barely understand. We could use some allies. Jetlak and Vorith exchanged glances. The Concord was formed to prevent conflict and promote cooperation between species, Jetlak said finally. For millennia, we have lived in fear of the war gods returning. Perhaps it is time we learn to see humans as you truly are. Not gods, not monsters, but simply another species trying to survive in a dangerous universe. With some impressive adaptations, Vorith added, glancing at Commander Ramirez and her team. Admiral Chen smiled. We all adapt in our own ways. The continuity protocol was humanity's attempt to ensure our survival through cooperation and preservation, not conquest. Then perhaps, Jetlak said, extending a scaled hand toward Chen, it is time for a new protocol, one that includes humanity in the galactic community. As Chen took his hand, sealing the first official alliance between humanity and the Galactic Concord, Ileana looked to the stars visible through the command center's viewport. For centuries, humanity had slept, hidden away from a galaxy that feared them. Now they were awake, and the universe would never be the same. In the depths of space, the transformed harvester pulsed with blue energy, no longer a threat, but a guardian. Within its reconfigured systems, the consciousness of Sergeant Wei Chen lived on, merged with the Prometheus seed, watching over humanity as it took its first steps into a larger universe. The war gods had awakened, but they had chosen a path not of destruction, but of creation. And the galaxy would soon learn that humans were indeed a force to be reckoned with, not because of their capacity for violence, but because of their unending ability to adapt, to survive, and ultimately, to transform even their greatest enemies into allies.